Hey guys, welcome back to more HOA stories. In this video, a crazy HOA sued me because of my classic 1967 Chevrolet Camaro, and I have honestly no idea how to deal with them. Let's dive right into the video. And the first one starts like this. So my grandfather and I were always super close. I would always spend my weekends over at his house, and as the years passed, we grew closer. He would take me shopping, build Legos with me, and just keep me entertained. We grew incredibly close, especially after my parents died, since he practically raised me from my teenager years on. I owe it to my grandpa for shaping the person that I am today. He was an insanely cool guy. He fought in Vietnam and has a ton of medals for it. He always seemed like a tough guy, but in reality he was the kindest soul. He had a lot of hobbies, one of which was working on cars. Because of his interest and expertise in cars, my grandpa was the neighborhood's unofficial mechanic. One of my favorite anecdotes was when it was sunset and my grandpa and I were chilling outside together on his porch. One of his neighbors pulled up and told him that his car was acting weird, not driving smoothly with very jerky movements. My grandpa, the great guy he was, dropped everything that he was working on and told the guy to park his car and began the work on the car. He got the car fixed in less than 20 minutes, saving the guy a tow truck and a trip to the mechanic. When the neighbor tried paying for my grandpa's services, my grandpa dismissed him, but my grandpa also had cars on his own, and he had several cars that he would meticulously care for. My grandpa's pride and joy was his 1967 Chevrolet Camaro Yenko. He took it everywhere and always made sure it was in perfect shape. Recently, my grandpa passed away and he lived a long, fulfilling life, but it was still sad to see him go. My dad was my grandpa's only child, and because he passed away, I ended up inheriting everything in my grandfather's will, including his beautiful two-story house and of course his Chevrolet. However, I was not much of a car person as my grandpa was, but I learned enough from him to keep his car in shape. I don't drive it around as often as my grandpa did, as I'm a little worried that too much use will wear it down. However, I do drive it around on special occasions. My grandpa spent his entire life working on that beautiful car, and I would like to maintain it as much as I can. I moved into my grandpa's old house a month ago, and the neighborhood was quiet and many of my neighbors were old friends of my grandpa's, so I know them very well since they met me while I stayed at his house. 2 weeks ago, my girlfriend and I had our anniversary. Because it was a special occasion, I took out the Chevrolet and drove her to our favorite restaurant. It was very fun and we both had a great time. The day after, I worked from home, and while on my lunch break, I heard a lot of ringing from the front door. When I checked who was outside, I saw a middle-aged white woman that I'd never seen before waiting outside with a clipboard in her hand. I opened the door asking, "Hey, what can I do for you?" The woman, who for this I will call Karen, introduced herself as the president of the local HOA, and might I add, in a very snotty, narcissistic manner. She said that she had a complaint against me regarding my car. For some important context here, I never agreed to join the HOA, and during the first week of move-in, I did see that an HOA welcome packet was left on my doorstep. However, because I had no interest in joining a homeowners association, I just ignored it. I thought it was just an informational packet, not a mandatory membership invitation. Either way, HOAs should not have the authority to force anyone in a certain neighborhood to join them anyway, but before I could interject, she started babbling at me about the justifications for her complaint and the evidence she had against me. She claimed that my car was polluting the environment with its exhaust and said that within the HOA boundaries, it's illegal to have a car like mine. I asked her what she meant by that, and although for a moment she did seem to panic a bit, she mumbled something about the car being old and rowdy. I was not sure what she meant by that, but she continued by saying that the car should be removed from the property. Although I was annoyed by this, I did not want to piss her off, so I simply said that I'm sure my car does not emit more carbon dioxide than any other gas car, and that I don't drive the car frequently anyway. I myself am very conscious of our carbon footprint, so I have a hybrid, which, if you don't know, is a car that uses both electricity and gas. Karen mentioned that she saw me driving that Chevrolet yesterday, and I had to explain that I only drive it on special occasions, and because it was my anniversary yesterday, I took it out. I tried getting her to empathize with me, saying that the car was very important to me and that I could not easily give it up. However, she did not care. She was visibly angry that I was not listening to her and shouted, "I'm the HOA president. As a member, you should not be arguing with me." What a dictator, right? I told her that I was not a member, so I was not bound by their rules or regulations. She scoffed, replying, "Did you not see the package?" I explained this to her, but she didn't care. She threatened that she would pursue legal action if I did not get rid of my car. Since my lunch break was about to end, I told her that I had to return to work and politely asked her to leave. Thankfully, she left. I thought that was that, but a few days later, I received a summons to court in the mail. Honestly, it shocked me. Even though I knew Karen was stubborn and threatened to pursue legal action, I was still very surprised at her insistence. After all, it was just a car. Even now, I don't understand why Karen decided to go to court for this. That is what power and entitlement does to people, I guess. The court summons explained that Karen was suing me for violating the HOA's rules. She was also calling for the removal of my Chevrolet. I was really pissed. If you guys didn't know, that car is worth $380,000, probably more with all the work over the years my grandpa and I have put into it, but the sentimental value is worth so much more than a monetary value. That car was basically my grandfather's life work. I have so many memories of watching him work on the car, of him taking me on joyrides whenever he had the free time. If Karen won the case and got the car taken away from me, no doubt that all my grandpa's hard work would end up rotting in a scrapyard. I was not about to let all my memories of my grandpa be taken away by some old hag, no offense, with nothing better to do with her free time. I called my boss and asked him for a day off, explaining that I had some legal matters that I had to take care of. During that entire day, I scoured all over the internet trying to find the best lawyers in my area. Luckily though, after 3 long hours of scrolling through reviews, portfolios and other websites, I found a lawyer in my area that specialized in HOA cases. Honestly, the fact that a lawyer is specialized in cases like these makes me question if HOAs do more harm than good. Anyways, I scheduled an appointment with the lawyer and met him at his firm. I explained the situation with Karen, making sure to emphasize that I was never a part of this HOA. He agreed with me that in this situation I was most definitely in the right because I had not signed any agreement and Karen had no grounds to sue me for violations of any association I was not even a part of. When we were ready, we went to court against her. Karen had her own lawyer ready, but he was no match against mine. This lawyer was amazing. My lawyer was able to counter every argument Karen's lawyer brought up. Karen's lawyer kept trying to assert that Karen had a right to take care of her neighborhood as HOA president, but mine kept circling around the fact that I was never an HOA member. He even provided the local HOA's list of members where my name, of course, was absent. Guys, I know lawyers are pricey, but if you are in a particularly sticky situation in a civil dispute, they are really the way to go. I'm not allowed to list every instance for legal reasons and it would be way too long, but my favorite was when Karen's lawyer tried to bring up the environment problem. My lawyer's answer was amazing. He argued that if Karen was really concerned about the environment, she would be trying to remove all the cars on the block, showing that Karen's motives were not as caring about the environment as she hoped everyone would believe. And furthermore, he questioned Karen about her own car. Of course, under oath in court, she could not lie and she admitted to having a gas-fueled car, thus showing the hypocrisy in her justifications. We were also able to bring in my neighbors to plead their case. Most of them were my friends, or rather my grandpa's friends, but I made sure to reach out to the ones I was not familiar with to make sure things were fair. They shared their own experiences with the court, noting that the unnecessary trouble Karen was making by harassing them about rules they were violating. We built our case around not only the fact that Karen was needlessly harassing me, but also the other people in our neighborhood. With all the evidence gathered, the judge ruled in my favor, and what was even better was that the judge ordered Karen to pay for my legal fees. After I won my case, Karen's reputation in my neighborhood declined significantly. It felt like one of those stereotypical high school movies from the 2000s, where the loser kid beats the bully, whose popularity starts going down. Very Mean Girls-esque. I don't want to toot my own horn, but I think my victory in the case really helped to break the fear that my neighbors had of Karen. The entire neighborhood used to be terrified of her complying to her demands out of fear of legal trouble. But now though, they were able to stand up to that Karen tyrant. For example, I came home one day to my next door neighbor yelling at Karen. The argument went back and forth a lot, but after my neighbor threatened to call the police if she didn't get off his property, she finally left. I asked him what that was about and he explained it was because of a tree he was growing in his front yard. I half expected him to earn a lawsuit as well, but nothing came and Karen's complaints became less and less. Eventually, she ended up retiring from her position of HOA president due to everyone's complaints about her. I sincerely hope that the next person who is chosen as president is nicer than Karen. As for me, I'm still taking care of the car and trying to readjust to the new neighborhood. Honestly, this first month did not go how I expected at all, but I guess in the end I can really thank Karen for complaining so much that she ended up losing her own job. The next one is titled Sticking It to the HOA, Know the Rules and Your Boundaries. So I just came back from visiting my parents in Florida, Fort Lauderdale area. They've been living in 55+ community for over 20 years. Of the 400+ apartments, they are 2 of only about 100 year-round residents. The rest of the apartments are owned by Canadians who come down for the winter and maybe stay 3 months total. Florida just passed a law about hunting invasive species, and in the Fort Lauderdale area, iguanas are everywhere. So then we called the local authorities per regulations and let them know that we would be hunting iguanas with approved air rifles. So we start making rounds around the canal water and some lady from the pool comes running out yelling at us, towel half falling off, flip-flops and huge floppy hat. She was complaining that we were making too much noise and causing a disturbance to the residents. She started screaming that she's on the HOA board and she was calling the police to get us thrown out for illegal trespassing. My father just started laughing at her and said the police already know that we are out hunting and he's been here for 20 years. So we pay her no mind and continue hunting. About 20 minutes later and we hear the sirens, the police and ambulance show up. We meet the police and provide the time we called in and it's verified. They were happy to see us hunting them and took some pictures of our kills. We had a total of 32 in 2 days. However, the lady evidently called another police district with an active shooter call, and they in turn sent the police and ambulance. She was told that she had no authority to stop us from hunting, and air rifles are not a disturbance, and that is why they are authorized for use, and the canals and waterways are all under Florida state control. She was also issued a citation for making false reports and told that in the future she should not openly confront people with firearms and recommended to call the appropriate law enforcement office as she is a temporary resident. It made my dad's day watching her fume and get red with anger. And the next one is titled HOA Cut My Tree. So my house is the first house in the neighborhood. I'm on the corner, the street on the side of my home is the HOA neighborhood, but my front yard is on a different street that is not part of the HOA. When I moved, I asked them if I could pay their HOA fees to let my kids use the pool and playground directly across the street. The answer was nope. I planted a mulberry tree on the corner of my property and started getting visits from their HOA saying that my branches were too low to the ground and it apparently violated their HOA bylaws. I told them if I was in the HOA, you would see my kids swimming in the pool. Since they didn't, they would have to deal with my tree. My kids love that tree and still come in spring to gather berries even though they are now in their 20s. Then one day I come home and someone had lopped off a big branch from the tree, one that went out to the street. I tried to find out who did it, but they kept mum about it, and there wasn't anyone I could go after. So then I rebuilt the branch using PVC and wrapped it in bright Christmas lights, it was May, and then wrapped the rest of the tree for good measure. I did it ugly too, it was propped up with old branches I found in the woods and some rope, and it just looked awful. I kept those lights on all the way until just before Christmas, when I took them down. They sent me some letters, but they just went into the trash. The HOA members who came to my house to ask me to bring them down, since it was the gateway to their neighborhood, and that I was probably affecting property values, were just told to F off. They never did mess with the lights though. And now let's move on to the next story. It starts like this. I know the owner. Yeah, you don't. Years and years ago, I worked retail as a minor. This was in the 80s or so. In some non-corporate businesses, you could get away with this. I looked more grown up than most kids my age, probably because I dressed more adult than was usual for a dinky little gift shop. There were several Karen encounters, but this one was my favorite. Karen, you have to give me a discount. I know the owner. He always gives me 50% off of everything. Me, lady, I really doubt that. Karen, I know the owner. I'll get you fired if you don't give me a discount. Me, oh would you please, please get me fired. Karen, what? Me, he is a slave driver, he doesn't even pay me. I wanna be fired. Karen, what? Me, the owner is my dad, and now get out. He would never give anyone a 50% discount because we'd be losing money. She is all red with embarrassment and rushes out without buying. I had to put back everything she brought to the counter, but it was worth it just to yell at someone. I was the only one in the shop that day since I was covering for my dad, so I knew I would not get in trouble. Oh, and yeah, I was not being paid, but my parents paid for my college so that I did not have any student loans, so I guess that was fair compensation. And the next one is titled, She Hates Pregnant People. I am 8 months pregnant, 26 female, and this takes place in March. A little over 2 months ago, I was in a coffee shop enjoying my evening with my 3 kids, 2 female, 4 and 6 female, and I just ordered hot chocolates for my 2 oldest babies and milk for my youngest. I also ordered a hot tea for myself when my name was called. There was a woman about 60 or so there, and we will call her Karen. She saw me reach for the tray with the drinks, but she got to them first and threw the drinks in the trash, crying about how I was being irresponsible and should not drink coffee being pregnant. The thing was, my oldest, we will call her Lucy, was standing beside me and she started crying and hugging my leg. The barista saw this and she made us more drinks, and again, Karen did the same thing. Lucy was crying harder, which got my other 2 kids, we will call the 4-year-old Sophie and the youngest will be called Erica, to start crying too. I then picked Erica up and Karen snatched her from my arms. Here is the conversation. Karen, how irresponsible are you? First ordering coffee for you and these very young kids and now holding a child while pregnant. Give me my daughter now. Karen, no. I will hold onto her for you. I'm a better parent than you. Me, listen lady, I ordered milk for my youngest, hot chocolate for my other 2 and tea for myself, and you have no right to touch any of my kids. Give me my damn daughter, Karen. At this point the cops came. I assume someone in the cafe called them. Most likely it was the barista. The cops asked me if I wanted to press charges, since where I am from, it is illegal to touch anyone without theirs or their parents, and if it is a child under 16, permission. I told them yes, I don't know what happened after the cops took her away and gave me Erica back. The cafe refunded me for my drinks, made more and gave them to me, and gave me free pastries since they felt bad. I tried to decline it, but they insisted. And yeah, Ripe Stars, I gotta say, dealing with a Karen does not sound so bad after all if you get free pastries. I mean, honestly, if you're at a cafe and they have some banger chocolate chip cookies, I would not mind dealing with a Karen for a few free cookies. If you have ever dealt with a Karen in public, please feel free to let us know in the comments about what happened. And the next one is titled, Residents Are More Important Than You. So I live on a cul-de-sac where I rent a back house from my landlords. There is another elderly tenant who lived inside the landlord's house I was very close with that we will call Good Sir. I have these neighbors next to me who I had gotten along with for as long as I lived there before the pandemic. The husband, we will call him Mr. Chill, has been especially cool with me. My neighbors have 3 cars and between them 2 belong to Mr. Chill and the wife, who we will call Mrs. Hypocrite. And the other car belongs to their daughter, we will call her the Hawk. When the pandemic hit, Mr. Chill's family, for reasons that didn't make sense to me, suddenly stopped parking their cars in the driveway and would park them all on the curb in front of their house, as well as the Hawk taking the spot I usually parked in more so than her parents did. Finally, after a few months of this going on, I see the Hawk outside and I ask her if she wouldn't mind sharing the spot that I used to park at with me, explaining my situation with being overworked and exhausted from my job. She gives me an annoyed look and just responds by saying, I use it. I realize I'm wasting my time, tell her never mind and go inside. Not even 5 minutes later, there is a knock at the door and it is Good Sir letting me know that the neighbors want to talk to me. Mrs. Hypocrite is standing there all pissed looking, asking me what the problem is. I explained to Mrs. Hypocrite what I said to the Hawk and she apologized for coming off so angry and says, you know, street parking is what it is. It is first come first serve and we are not parking to try and give anyone a hard time. The conversation goes nowhere, but we end it peacefully. About a week later, I am parked in my spot for a change and my girlfriend comes over to visit with our child. It is summertime and it is hot. Towards the evening, I get a knock on the door and it is Good Sir. He says the neighbor wants to talk and I see Mr. Chill standing right there and he just asks if my girlfriend could move her car because she's got a bunch of curb behind her but not enough for another car to fit. Before I can even say anything, Mrs. Hypocrite shows up out of nowhere and goes off saying, I'm so sick of going back and forth about this. She is double parked and there's not enough room for any other car to fit. I understand that she's your girlfriend and she's visiting, but I believe residents should get priority parking first. It looks like you guys are trying to save the parking for yourselves, and I'm not dealing with this anymore. She needs to move her car. I'm in complete shock and have a lot I wanted to say, but I don't and just go inside to ask my girlfriend to move. She thinks they are hypocrites and move just because she feels like that's all they have to feel proud of in their lives. The only reason I gave into them is just so my landlords don't get involved and risk it turning into them not wanting to renew my lease with me, otherwise I would have said something. Funnily enough, even though they got pissed at my girlfriend for double parking, the hawk is the queen of doing that on our cul-de-sac without Mrs. Hypocrite telling her anything. Last year in November, good sir was not doing too well and went into hospice care, eventually passing away unfortunately. He gave me his car as a gift and a thank you for being family to him. I now had 2 cars, 2 spots and an idea. Enter petty malicious compliance. Mrs. Hypocrite said that street parking is first come first serve and that residents should have priority over the parking, and well then, so be it. I only need to use 1 car and the other one can just stay parked. Since I'm a resident, I decided to park whichever car I'm not using in the spot that I would normally park at and swap them out every 2 weeks in rotation. My girlfriend parks where good sir used to. The hawk, her boyfriend and Mrs. Hypocrite have not touched that spot since I started doing this, since one of my 2 cars is always there. As a little bonus too, Mrs. Hypocrite put one of their cars they are not using back in the driveway, and when there is a party going on and all the parking is taken up, the spot in front of their house is sometimes open, and since, again, I'm a resident, the guests have taken all the other spots, well, I guess I do need a spot to park at, after all, right? Sorry Mrs. Hypocrite and or the hawk, I guess you'll just have to park around the block and take a nice walk to get to your house. I am only following what you believe the parking rules should be. Rest in peace, good sir. I miss you every single day. I'll always love you as my own family. And yeah guys, with this we have reached the end of the video. However, if you cannot get enough of my content, please don't forget to subscribe to the channel to not miss any of my daily uploads. And also check out my podcast by searching for Ripe Stories on Spotify, Amazon, Audible and other podcast platforms. You will often find exclusive episodes and early access to new content. Furthermore, please check out my Patreon by going to patreon.com/ripeyoutube or my YouTube membership program for even more exclusive stories. Thank you so much and I will see you again tomorrow.